She closed her eyes, ready to die on an alien world under 2 frozen moons. But when she opened them, she was in the arms of the very species her empire tried to erase. And that was the moment the galaxy made its biggest mistake, underestimating humanity. The desert of Nareth Prime did not forgive the weak. White sand stretched like bone dust across the horizon. Ruins of alien towers leaned like broken ribs against the night sky. 2 pale moons watched in silence. Half buried in the sand lay Commander Velora Syrinx of the Varelian Dominion. Once feared. Once powerful. Now discarded. Her purple skin, once bright like royal silk, had faded under weeks of sun and dehydration. Her armor was cracked. Her neural cuffs, used to restrain traitors, still circled her wrists, rusted and broken. She had been judged. She had been exiled. She had been erased. Her crime? Mercy. She remembered the battlefield. Fire falling from the sky. Human defenses collapsing. Orders transmitted through the command link. Eliminate all survivors. She moved through smoke and debris, stepping over broken metal and shattered drones. That was when she heard it. A child crying. A human child. Small. Bleeding. Holding a burned toy. Her rifle had locked onto the target automatically. One pull of the trigger. One less enemy. Her commander's voice echoed in her mind, "Do not hesitate." But she did. For the first time in her life, she disobeyed. Instead of firing, she lowered the weapon. She picked up the child. She ran. That single act shattered her entire existence. The Dominion called it treason. They called it weakness. They called it contamination by human sentiment. So they put her in a transport pod. No beacon. No supplies. No return path. They launched her into Naratha's wasteland. Mercy, they said. Now she lay waiting for death. And finally, she let herself accept it. She closed her eyes. The wind whispered over the dunes. Then something changed. A vibration in the sand. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Careful. A shadow crossed her body. A man knelt beside her. Elias Ward did not expect to find a Varelian commander half dead in the desert. Humans had been pushed back to only 3 settlements on Nareth Prime. The war had nearly wiped them out. But humans did not surrender planets easily. Elias was a scavenger, engineer, and former orbital mechanic. He survived by rebuilding scraps of alien tech into something usable. His scanner pulsed green. Life signs detected. Weak. Critical. He looked at her face. He recognized the insignia burned into her broken armor. High command. He should have walked away. Instead, he did something very human. He reached for his water flask. He pressed it gently against her lips. "Don't die out here," he muttered. "That's not how this story ends." She did not respond. He pulled a stim injector from his kit. Adjusted dosage. Pressed it to her neck. Her body jerked. Air rushed into her lungs. Her eyes opened. Bright violet. Confused. Terrified. Alive. She tried to move, but he steadied her. "Easy," he said. "You're safe." Safe. The word felt foreign to her. Her gaze shifted to his sleeve. There, stitched roughly into his jacket, was something she recognized. The symbol of the 17th Dominion Fleet. But altered. Cracked. Crossed out. He saw her focus. "Yeah," he said quietly. "That used to belong to you." Silence stretched between them. He stood and activated a small thermal shield beside the wreckage of an old research vessel wing. "You can hate me later," he said. "Right now, you need to survive." She watched him move. Precise. Calm. Resourceful. He repaired a broken heat unit with wires stripped from 3 different devices. He patched together energy cells that should not have been compatible. He adjusted frequencies manually instead of relying on AI assistance. Improvised. Adapted. Created. She had studied humans before the invasion. Emotional. Chaotic. Divided. That was the official record. But what she saw now was different. Humans did not survive because they were stronger. They survived because they refused to stop thinking. Hours later, as warmth returned to her body, she spoke her first words in weeks. "Why?" Elias did not look at her. "Because once," he said slowly, "someone chose not to kill my little sister." Her breath caught. He finally met her eyes. "She told us what you did." The desert wind howled outside the shield. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. The Dominion believed fear would crush resistance. But neither understood something dangerous. Humans remember kindness. And they repay it with loyalty. Velora closed her eyes again. Not to die, but to think. For the first time since her exile, she did not feel alone. And far above the desert, a Dominion surveillance satellite adjusted its orbit. It had detected an anomaly. 2 life signs where there should have been 1. The war was not over. It was about to change. And humanity was about to prove why every empire that underestimates them eventually falls. By morning, the desert looked almost peaceful. The light of Nareth Prime slid across the dunes like a slow tide, turning the sand into pale silver. The ruins in the distance stopped looking like a graveyard and started looking like a warning. Velora lay under the thermal blanket, watching Elias work with the same steady focus he had shown all night. He did not treat her like a monster. He treated her like a problem that could be solved. That, somehow, felt more frightening than hatred. Elias peeled back the broken cuff on her wrist and studied the corroded locking mechanism. His fingers moved with calm precision. He was not gentle because he was weak. He was gentle because he could afford to be. The difference mattered. Velora flinched when the metal shifted. Elias paused. "Hurts." "It reminds me," she said. "Then we fix it faster." He pulled a thin blade from a kit and used it like a surgeon, prying out a tiny shard lodged near her bone. Velora's jaw tightened, but she did not scream. Varelians were trained never to show pain. Still, her hands trembled when he finally freed the cuff. She expected him to step back, to point a weapon, to demand answers. Instead, he offered her water again. The gesture hit her harder than any interrogation. "You shouldn't trust me," she said, voice thin from disuse. Elias tightened a wire on the heater. "I don't. Trust isn't the same as help." Velora stared at him. "Why help an enemy?" He shrugged. "Maybe you're not the enemy anymore." She wanted to argue. She wanted to say that the Dominion never forgave. That her kind killed entire colonies for less. That the galaxy was built on fear and control. But her body remembered the human child she had saved. Small hands. Burned fingers. The way his chest had risen in desperate little breaths. Velora swallowed. "My people will come." Elias looked up. "I figured." He reached into a pouch and pulled out a small metal sphere. He rolled it into the sand and tapped it twice. It opened like a flower, thin panels unfolding into a low-humming dish. Velora recognized the design. A Dominion pulse listener. "Was," Elias said. "Now it's mine." The dish flickered, then whispered in hard, clipped Dominion code. Velora's eyes narrowed as she listened. Reckon sweep. Anomaly confirmed. Signal trace. Unknown shelter field. Velora's stomach tightened. They saw the shield. Elias nodded. Not with eyes. With math. Humans. Always using math like a weapon. Velora pushed herself upright, pain flashing through her ribs. She hissed but forced her breath steady. "They will send a retrieval unit." "And?" Elias said. "And they will not retrieve me," she whispered. "They will erase me." Elias stood and walked to the edge of the shelter wing. He looked out across the dunes as if the desert was just another engineering problem. "Then we move." Velora blinked. "Move where?" Elias motioned toward the ruins. "There's a human relay nest about 20 kilometers. Underground. We call it basalt. We don't broadcast it. We don't even say it out loud near open sky. But I can get us there, Velora stared. You're bringing me into a human settlement. Elias looked at her like she had missed the point. You're already in one. Just smaller. Something in Velora's chest shifted, an old, stubborn pride cracking. A few hours later, they crossed the dunes. Elias moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned how to live where others died. He did not fight the desert. He flowed through it, using the wreckage and terrain like cover, reading the wind, watching the sky for glints of reflective metal. Velora followed, slower, limping at first. But as they traveled, she noticed how Elias used everything. A broken drone wing became shade. A shard of crystal became a lens for scouting. A cracked battery became 3 working cells after he rewired it. He was not stronger than the world. He simply refused to accept what the world told him was impossible. That was a kind of strength she had never trained for. By late afternoon, they reached the ruins of a collapsed tower. Its skeleton rose from the sand like a giant hand reaching for help. Elias ducked into a narrow gap and pressed his palm against a stone panel. Nothing happened. Velora frowned. No lock. Elias smiled. Old human trick. He knocked 3 times. Not a code. Not a pattern. Just a knock. A moment later, the sand beside them shifted. A hidden hatch hissed open. A human woman emerged, rifle raised. She was tall and lean, with copper-brown skin and tight braids pulled back under a scarf. Her eyes snapped from Elias to Velora, and the rifle did not lower. Elias lifted both hands. Mara. It's me. Mara's voice was cold. Why are you bringing that here? Velora expected hatred. She almost welcomed it. Hatred made sense. Elias spoke carefully. She didn't kill the child. Mara's grip tightened. That doesn't mean she didn't kill others. Velora forced herself to speak. I did, she said. I obeyed. Until I couldn't. Mara's eyes sharpened. You expect forgiveness? Velora shook her head. No. I expect consequences. Mara stared for a long moment, then angled the rifle down, but not away. Basalt doesn't forgive easily. Elias nodded. I know. They moved underground. Basalt was not a city. It was a scar that refused to close. Tunnels reinforced with scavenged metal. Lighting made from salvaged panels. Air filtered through patched pipes and old fans. Humans moved quietly, watching the stranger with wary eyes. Children peeked from behind door curtains, curiosity fighting fear. Velora felt every gaze like a blade. Then she saw something that made her stop. A wall of names. Handwritten. Painted. Carved. Thousands of them. Not soldiers. Not heroes. Families. Farmers. Teachers. Mechanics. Babies born during raids. People who died trying to keep a generator running. Velora's throat tightened. Her empire called humans primitive. But primitives did not build memorials while starving. Primitives did not keep hope alive by turning grief into a shared story. Mara guided them into a small chamber where a man sat at a table covered in maps and battered screens. He was older, with a grey beard and an artificial eye that clicked softly as it focused. He looked up when they entered. This was Juno Red, one of Basalt's leaders. His gaze moved to Velora without fear. You're the Varelian commander, he said calmly. Velora stiffened. Former. Juno leaned back. Former doesn't erase what you did. I know, Velora said. Elias stepped forward. She was exiled. Left to die. Dominion is scanning the area. Juno's artificial I-word. So they found her. Velora felt shame heat her face. My existence will bring danger to you. Juno tapped the table thoughtfully. Danger is already here. It never left. Mara crossed her arms. Why are we even listening? Juno's gaze stayed on Velora. Because the Dominion does not throw away gold unless it's afraid of what it might become. Velora's stomach sank. They're afraid of a traitor. Juno shook his head. No. They're afraid of a story. He leaned forward. Tell me what you know. Velora hesitated. Then she spoke. She explained the Dominion supply routes, their orbital timing, their reliance on centralized command AI. She explained how their fleets moved like one organism, and how that same unity made them predictable. Mara scoffed. So we should be grateful for scraps. Velora met her eyes. No. You should use them. Juno's fingers tapped faster. Predictable, centralized, reliant. Elias looked at the maps. Like a machine with one power cord. Juno's expression shifted into something sharp and dangerous. Exactly. Velora blinked. What are you planning? Juno smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a species that had been cornered too many times and finally decided to bite back. We're planning, he said, to make the Dominion chase the wrong ghost. At that moment, an alarm siren screamed through basalt. A young scout rushed into the chamber, breathless, eyes wide. Chief, he said, we've got a drop ship inbound. Dominion class. Landing less than 5 kilometers. Mara raised her rifle instantly. They found us. Velora's blood turned cold. Elias looked at her, voice low. This is why we moved. Juno stood slowly. No, he corrected. This is why we waited. Velora stared. Waited. Juno reached under the table and pulled out a small device wrapped in cloth. He set it down like it was fragile, sacred. It was Dominion tech. But altered. Human hands had changed it. Velora's eyes widened. That's a fleet beacon. Elias nodded. Was. Juno's artificial eye clicked. Now it's a lie. The sirens continued. The ground trembled as the enemy ship drew closer. And Velora realized the terrifying truth. Humans were not just surviving anymore. They were learning how to control the battlefield. They were learning how to weaponize imagination. And the Dominion was about to walk straight into it. The Dominion drop ship cut through the clouds like a blade. Its engines burned cold blue against the darkening sky, precise and merciless. It hovered over the desert 5 kilometers from basalt, scanning, calculating, correcting. Inside the underground chamber, the humans did not panic. They prepared. Velora stood beside Juno, watching the tactical screen flicker with Dominion code. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from recognition. She knew how her people thought. She had once commanded ships just like that one. They will deploy scouts first, she said. 3 units. 1 aerial. 2 ground. Elias glanced at her. And what will they expect? Velora answered automatically. Resistance. Desperation. Chaos. Juno smiled faintly. Good. He turned to Mara. Phase 1. Mara nodded and tapped her wrist console. Above ground, hidden in the wreckage field, small devices activated one by one. Not weapons. Not mines. Signals. Dominion-coded signals. The dropship scanners pulsed again. Inside the alien craft, confusion rippled through the command AI. It detected Dominion fleet signatures in the ruins. Command pings. Officer markers. Energy profiles matching high-ranking personnel. Velora inhaled sharply. You're broadcasting false command signals. Elias shrugged. You said they rely on centralized command. So we gave them something to obey. On the tactical screen, the dropship shifted position. Its nose angled toward the ruins, away from basalt. Juno's artificial eye clicked rapidly as he studied the response patterns. They are verifying. Velora's mind raced. If they detect inconsistencies. They won't, Elias interrupted calmly. Because we didn't fake it. We repurposed real Dominion code. Your empire writes beautiful software. He tapped the altered fleet beacon. We just rewrote the ending. Outside, 3 scout drones launched from the dropship. They sped toward the false signal. Velora's chest tightened. They'll discover the trick once they land. Juno nodded. That's phase 2. The first drone descended into the shattered skeleton of an old tower. Its scanners swept the debris field. Then it found what it was searching for. A Dominion officer's life sign. Strong. Stable. Authorized. Velora stared at the screen. That's impossible, she whispered. Elias gave her a small look. No. It's human. Buried beneath the sand was an old Dominion medical pod salvaged months earlier. Inside, a modified biogenerator pulsed with a cloned Varelian energy signature, built from fragments of her own broken cuff. Velora felt dizzy. You used my genetic trace. Tiny sample, Elias said. Enough to trick a scanner. Not enough to clone you. The drone transmitted confirmation. Inside the dropship, the command AI recalculated. Protocol required retrieval of high-ranking officers. The ground units advanced toward the ruins. Juno's voice lowered. Phase 3. Hidden charges, constructed from repurposed fuel cells and mining detonators, armed silently. Velora's breath slowed. She realized something profound. The Dominion valued order. Humans valued adaptation. That difference was about to change the war. The first ground unit stepped into the tower's shadow. The explosion did not roar. It collapsed. The tower fell inward like a dying star, swallowing both ground units in a storm of crystal and sand. The shockwave rippled outward but remained contained within the ruins. The aerial drone attempted to retreat. But Mara had anticipated that. She fired a modified pulse rifle from a distant ridge. The drone's stabilizers flickered. It spiraled down into the wreckage. Inside basalt, silence filled the chamber. Then Elias exhaled. That should confuse them. Velora stared at the tactical feed. The dropship hovered, uncertain. Dominion strategy depended on clear data. Clear chains of command. Clean outcomes. Humans had given them noise. Uncertainty. Contradiction. Inside the alien craft, the AI requested orbital guidance. But Juno had anticipated that too. Days earlier, Elias had launched a tiny scavenged satellite fragment into unstable orbit. It was crude. Imperfect. Human. It now transmitted false interference into Dominion relay bands. The drop ship hesitated. Velora felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. They will withdraw, she said slowly. To reassess. Juno nodded. That's what we want. Why? She asked. Mara lowered her rifle. Because confusion spreads faster than fire. Elias leaned against the wall. When they report back, they'll say they detected command signals, then lost contact with retrieval units. They'll suspect internal failure. Sabotage. Maybe even rebellion. Velora's eyes widened. You're making them distrust each other. Juno met her gaze. Empires don't fall from outside pressure. They fall when they stop trusting themselves. Above, the dropship engines flared. It lifted. It retreated into the clouds. Basalt did not cheer. Humans did not celebrate small victories. They recorded them. They learned from them. They built on them. Velora stood motionless as the tension drained from the chamber. You could have destroyed the ship, she said quietly. Elias shook his head. Not yet. Why not? Because fear is stronger when it grows slowly. Velora looked around at the underground settlement. The patched walls. The recycled air. The tired faces that still carried stubborn light in their eyes. Her empire believed humanity was fractured. Divided by culture. Language. Belief. But here they were. Unified not by control. But by choice. Mara approached her slowly. You gave us information, Mara said. That saved lives. Velora lowered her gaze. I also took lives. Mara's voice remained steady. So did we. Silence passed between them, not forgiveness, but something more real. Understanding. Juno turned back to his screens. This was one skirmish. Velora stepped forward. It won't be the last. No, Juno agreed. It won't. She hesitated. Then she did something no Varelian commander had ever done in recorded history. She removed the insignia fragment still attached to her armor. She placed it on the table. I cannot return to the Dominion, she said. But I know their fleet routes, their expansion targets, their weaknesses. Elias studied her carefully. You're choosing sides. Velora nodded. I am choosing survival. Juno shook his head gently. No, he corrected. You're choosing something bigger. Velora frowned. What? Juno looked at the names carved into the memorial wall. Freedom. The word echoed through her mind. Freedom was inefficient, unpredictable, dangerous, and powerful. Outside, the twin moons rose again over Nareth Prime. Far above the planet, Dominion command vessels analyzed incomplete reports. They detected anomalies in their own systems. Small errors. Minor contradictions. Seeds of doubt. They did not yet understand. But they would. Because humanity had just demonstrated something terrifying. They did not need superior weapons. They did not need larger fleets. They only needed time. And imagination. Velora stepped toward the tunnel entrance and looked at the desert that had once been her grave. She had closed her eyes to die. But she had awakened inside the arms of a species that refused to surrender. And now the galaxy faced a new reality. Humans were not the prey of empires. They were the storm that reshaped them. And this was only the beginning.